talking today about love addiction. And is it love or is it addiction? And if it is love addiction, what to do about it? We haven't, it really started, people started talking about it in the 70s. And then.
We lost you, Tennie.
Hold on.
Okay.
I don't know why it did that. Okay.
You're on mute, Tennie.
Okay, I don't know why it did. We didn't press any. Okay. We're good.
Can you hear me? Now can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
All right.
You're
good. Okay. Am I good? All righty. So what I was saying, we're going to be talking about love addiction today, and is it love or is it addiction? And I was also saying that it was really back in the 70s that people started talking about love addiction, and then in the 80s, my friend Pia Melody wrote a book called Love Addiction and really explored it even more and gave us some good information. And I trained with Pia, and a lot of our staff has, and then we've trained the staff on Pia's model of treating love addiction and sex addiction. But we're going to talk about love addiction today. Love addiction is a proven, it's called a process addiction, and it is affects the same part of the brain as drugs, alcohol, any drug does. It is definitely an addiction. And it's painful because at the core, what a love addict is trying to do is fill up that hole in the soul, or that core pain that's caused by lack of nurturing or attention in childhood. And now that lack of attention and nurturing in childhood can look a lot of different ways. It can look like majority of your love addicts are raised by some form of an addict. Any addiction will do, work addiction, alcoholism, it's any time where the child has felt, not nurtured or not paid attention to is a lot of it, And, the example that I give is, and this can be, a woman or a man can be a love addict. It's not either or. I mean, it's not just one, but a lot of, so many times women, your love addict will be the woman, but it doesn't have to be. It's men and women. But the scenario that I give is how, let's say this little girl was set up to, came out of a household maybe where dad was an alcoholic. He was gone a lot, and when he was there, he wasn't really there. He was either passed out or drinking, but, he was gone a lot. And, a child really doesn't know a lot of times why the parent is gone. They just know that they're gone. And then in that kind of coupleship where the father's focus is on some form of addiction, then the co-addict, the mother, her focus is on the addict. So actually the child is not getting attention, much attention from either one. And so this is where Pia, and I like the way that Pia put it, is that love addicts get addicted to the back walking away. They get addicted to people that cannot be there for them. And they choose people who cannot be there for them. They choose unavailable people to be there. Like they'll choose someone that's married, or they'll choose someone that is an alcoholic or has some form of addiction. They will absolutely choose someone that cannot be there for them. And for the love addict, it's all about the chase. It is about the chase. And there's been some famous love addicts. The bottom line for love addiction is suicide and homicide. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody that's a love addict goes down that far, but there are people who go down that far. And, I just got back from a trip from St. Louis, and I think the day before I left, I read in our local newspaper where a man killed his wife, caught her, with another man, and he killed her. That is love addiction at the core. But like I said, we've had some famous love addicts. For one, y'all remember the lady astronaut that was absolutely addicted to another astronaut. And he, in turn, found him a new love object, And she drove from Florida to Houston in order to beat up that woman. They didn't know what she was going to do, but she got so obsessed with that woman that was taking her man away. That is love addiction at the core. And then Betty Broderick, I don't know if y'all remember, there was a movie made about her. She was married to a lawyer husband. Her husband was a lawyer, and they'd had a good marriage. She'd have to go through school, and they had a house full of kids, and life was good, and blah blah blah, and all that. And then all of a sudden, he had a fling with his secretary, and not only did he have a fling with his secretary, but he divorced his wife, and married the secretary, and the wife could not ever accept it. She kept thinking he was going to come back to her. He was going to come back to her, and he didn't. So one day she marched in to the house, and he got to the house where she had raised all of her children, and they had had a good life. She marched up those stairs, opened the bedroom door, and killed her husband and his new wife. That's the extreme of love addiction. She's still in the penitentiary, and I read where she's just now coming and talking to the parole board about the abuse that he had given her. She's hid that because she didn't want her kids to know, but she was willing to go to prison for it. I mean, these are extremes. And there was a woman, and I'm laughing, it's not funny. But this is the extreme that the love addict will go to. There was a woman in Houston, and her husband was getting a divorce, and they were wealthy. He was wealthy, and all of that. And when she got to the courthouse, his Mercedes was there, and she ran over that Mercedes, backed up, ran over it again, backed up. Good thing it wasn't him, or she would have wound up in the penitentiary. So those are the extreme consequences of love addiction. And the other consequences of love addiction is depression, anxiety. It can be a loss of a job. A love addict can spend all of their time on the telephone tracking their love object down, or talking to them. And also they can lose custody of their children. If there's a separation or a divorce, and the wife's focus is on the husband instead of the children, where your love addict will be the one that will be stalking the partner, the other one. They will go to their place of business, and they have very erratic behavior, and they can to the point of losing custody of their children. So this is not just a little deal. It can grow to be a huge problem. And what the symptoms are is feeling of being incomplete without being in a relationship. Now, a love addict, if they leave, they don't usually leave, but if someone leaves them, if they're in a relationship, they've already got somebody back here that they're holding on to. They are not going to be in a relationship alone. They're not going to be alone. They're going to be in some form of relationship. So if they're getting out of one, they're already looking for the next one. And keep in mind, they look for people who are not available. They will look for, a woman will even see this good-looking guy and realize that he's gay, and feels like that she has the power to change him. If she loved him enough, she could change him and make him straight. It's a very power-driven emotion. Love addiction is, and then they set up very unrealistic expectations. A love addict wants whoever their love object is, they want their full attention all of the time. They're attention seeking. Now the deal to that, see, what most love addicts do is find people that can't be there for them emotionally. And so it's always in the chase. Now, if their love object happens to turn around and starts toward the love addict, it scares the love addict to death, because what they are afraid of intimacy. And so when their love object actually starts coming toward them, a lot of times they'll turn around and be the back walking away. They'll run from the intimacy. And it's the intimacy that they're afraid of. And so it's in the chase that they get those addictive feelings going. And, like I said, they will choose unavailable partners, an avoidance addict. And avoidance is usually like I'm beating this horse to death, but your avoidance addict usually has some form of addiction. There'll be your your alcoholic, drug addict, sex addict. They'll have some form of addiction. Work addiction works real great, where they're gone all the time. And what the love addict will do is they will give and give and give, and they'll give sex, when they're wanting love. And what they'll accept and settle for are just a few little crumbs. If the one that they're in a relationship with turns around and just gives them a compliment or just a few little crumbs, my Lord, that thrills a love addict to death. And they'll have them forever. And so a love addict can be very manipulative. You talk about manipulation. They can be very manipulative and, and figure out situations where they, if they're not actually in a relationship with the person that they're chasing, they'll find a way to happen to be where they are, whether it's at church, an AA meeting, or whatever. They're going to show up where the person that they're chasing might be. And like I said, lots of manipulation. It is all a mind game with a love addict. And then they have the fear of trust. They don't trust anyone. And they'll pick untrustworthy people to be with. Duh, like a love addict will pick someone, like I said, that cannot be there for them. They cannot or will not be there for them. And so it sets up that fear of trust, but it was set up back in childhood. We don't look at our childhood to beat up parents. We don't do that. We look back at our childhood to get our story straight, to see what we got in our childhood and what was missing. I always say, I don't believe any parent wakes up some morning and says, well, today's the day I go screw up my kids' lives. I don't think parents intentionally do that. They pass on what was given to them. And so when you, as parents, I'll tell you, one of the things that that affects a lot of children is coming out of a divorce. Now, and sometimes, and I'm not, taking sides here, but I see it a lot, where the mother will wind up with primary custody of the children, or will, primary caregiver, and then there'll be an absent father. And when we work with, particularly women, coming into treatment or to an intensive, and they have that longing, that deep longing for a relationship. What's missing is that relationship, usually with their father. It can be with the mother, but a lot of times, particularly, we treat a lot of eating disorder clients, and we call that father hunger. We treat a lot of women with eating disorders. So a lot of your eating disorder women will have that father hunger, that longing, because the father hadn't turned around and been there. They haven't been doing much fathering. And so a divorce a lot of times will set that love addiction for a man or a woman. And then a love addict, well, and I've said this a little bit, but they'll have sex in order to hold on to the partner, to just keep them engaged, and because they have a real fear of rejection. It's like, do not leave me, do not reject me, and they will choose people that's going to leave them, duh. And it's to create that childhood feeling. That's what this is. It's always about the status quo, to go back to feel like we felt in childhood. If we lost a parent in death at an early age, that can set up that empty feeling of needing a love, someone to love. And for a love addict, it's never enough. It's never enough. It's not the right kind. It's not the right touch. It's not the right amount. There's just never enough. That's like drugs and alcohol and food for those of us that are addicted to substances. One is too many and 1,000's not enough. We never get enough, and that's where the love addict, they never get enough. And then half the time, the person they're in a relationship with is clueless to what their needs are. See, the love addict lives in a fantasy, and that fantasy comes out of between their two ears. It comes out of reading romance novels. It comes out of watching Hallmark TV shows or any kind of TV shows where, love is the deal. And so they live in a fantasy of what a relationship needs to look like. Because, see, if they come out of dysfunction, they have no frame of reference of what a healthy relationship looks like. So they make it up between their two ears, and then they forget to tell the partner the game plan here, and so the partner never gets it right. They never get it right. The love addict has the feeling, well, if I have to tell you what I need, it doesn't count. You need to know what I need. That's a lot of self-centeredness, but it's also about a lot of low self-esteem. Your love addicts will have a lot of low self-esteem. Now, this love addict I've talked about the stalking, and they'll spy. They'll spy on the love object, like men, if they're addicted to someone and, they may not even be in a relationship with them, but they are in their head. Maybe they've seen them at a restaurant, or maybe met them at a bar. Maybe the woman was working at a bar, and in that man's eyes, between his two ears, he's got a relationship with that gal, and he'll start stalking her. This is where love addiction can become very dangerous. And then it can be, doesn't have to be dangerous. Love addicts can become, such a nuisance. They can just aggravate their love object to death until they get them to turn around and face me, look at me. And the minute that person will turn around and face the love addict, it scares the love addict to death. They do not know how to handle a healthy relationship. They don't know how to handle the attention, the affection, and like I said a while ago, then they'll turn around and become the back walking away. So it's that dance back and forth and back and forth. Now, what health looks like if the couple, let's say, met at church or met at AA, and the love addict, sees a handsome guy or something and goes up and introduces herself to them, and then maybe he's attracted to her, but he's a love avoidant. And a lot of times that will show up with sex addicts. A lot of your sex addicts are after the release of the sex act. They're not after a relationship. They're after sex, and anybody will do. It doesn't matter. And so This love addict doesn't know that. What she's looking for, or he's looking for, is love me, just love me, love me, love me, love me. And so a lot of times the love addict will go toward the love avoidant. Now the love avoidant will come toward the love addict, usually for sex, and then they will turn around and walk away. And that is when the love addict really gets revved up. That's when the love addiction is set up, is when the love object turns around and walks away, and that love addict's like, ooh, the chase is on now. That's when the energy gets to going. That's when they call, all the time, drive around their place of business, try to find people who knows them to keep up with them. And I mean, it's crazy making behavior is what it is. So, but let's say those two people actually are attracted to each other. Let's say the guy, it's just kind of easier, it could be either way, but let's say the guy was a recovering alcoholic, but in this mess, this relationship that he got in, let's say, and it's not the relationship that caused him to drink or relapse. It was the disease, the disease of alcoholism. But let's say he relapses in alcoholism, and he goes to treatment for his alcoholism, and maybe it's been several times, and so they recommended that he stay for long term, 6 months to a year. And let's say while he's there, if he's in a really good treatment center that treats all addiction, they'll pick up that he's a sex addict. Let's say that he gets treated for his alcoholism, his sex to the town. And let's say they really kind of had a relationship going. And so she's waiting on him. She'd written him letters, they had phone calls. So she's so excited that he's back. And so when he comes back a different person. What recovery is when a person can stand tall and stand autonomous with the God of their understanding. When we can stand alone, we can stand with another person. But until we can be okay by ourselves, we go into a relationship to get something. We're going in there to get something. And guess what? Healthy people do not want to be with sick people. Healthy people attract health, and sickness attracts sickness. So let's say this guy's had a year of good recovery from his alcoholism and his sex addiction, and he feels good about himself, and he's ready for a relationship. And when he comes back, what happens is she's so excited. Oh, she is just so excited. And so when he comes toward her, keep in mind, she's the one that does the chasing. So when he comes close to her and really approaches her to enter a healthy relationship, she doesn't know how, and it scares her to death. And she will turn around and turn that back and walk away. But the difference is, if he's healthy, he will not chase her. He will not go after her. He will stand tall, firm in his, relationship with the God of his understanding. He'll keep his feet planted in recovery, and he won't chase her. And so what will happen is, hopefully she will go get her own help. And if she goes and gets her own help, maybe it's another year, who knows, but she gets in recovery from her love addiction, there's a chance for that couple. But there's no chance if only one recovers. It's a lopsided relationship. And so when you have a dependent type of relationship, like a love addiction, a love addict to a love avoidant, you got this dependency where they depend on each other and suck the very life out of each other. And then one of them gets sick enough to go for help. So this guy went and got help for his alcoholism and his sex addiction, and he's on the road to recovery. Now this one, and you've seen me talk about this a lot, but this one will either fall flat on their face, or they'll go over here and try to get this one. This is more common, to try to get this one back over here in this sick deal. And if this one's healthy, they will not get back over here in this dependency. He'll keep standing tall, autonomous, feet solid in recovery, and give her time to get healthy. So let's say she falls on her rear end and gets sick, and she goes for recovery. So you've got, if she recovers and he recovers, you've got two healthy people standing tall, autonomous. Now, perhaps they're ready for a relationship. And before, they were not even ready for a relationship because they wasn't bringing anything to the table. Both were going in there to get something. But when you are okay, when you can stand alone, you can stand with someone else. And you bring to the table. You don't have to go in there to get anything. And so it's a give and take relationship. One day, what health is one day maybe one of them's sick and they get over here and this one will lean on the other, the one will support them, and then they go back to standing tall, and then the next time the other one will lean. It's a give and take. It's not sucking the life out of each other. It's autonomous relationship with God in the center. And I will tell you, the relationship is a third entity. I don't care how much you love somebody, how in love you are and all of that. Relationships take work, and it takes two healthy people to step into a relationship and work on that relationship. And if both parties are not willing to do that, you probably won't have a healthy relationship. Now, people can stay in relationships and celebrate 50 freaking years, 50th anniversary, and be unhappy, and still not have a healthy relationship. Like I said, the relationship is a third entity, and you have to step into it and make a conscious effort to have a healthy relationship. So when you have two people standing tall, autonomous with each other, you don't let anything get between. Now, if you've got kids, you've got to focus on those kids some, but you don't put all of your focus on the kids. You don't let jobs interrupt that coupleship. You don't let in-laws, outlaws, anything come between the coupleship. Those are the two most important people in the family. Kids are wonderful, grandkids are, all of that, but when the couple puts all of their attention outside of that coupleship, they lose the relationship. So, love addiction is a freestanding addiction, and it is not loving for free and for fun. It is loving to get something back. And recovery, there must be serious recovery for this. And so what the treatment would look like, the first thing I would say to a love addict, you must look at your history. If you don't look at your childhood, you're going to miss the whole shebang. You must look at where you came from, where this started, this need to get love from outside yourself. Because recovery is about learning to love yourself. And when you can do that, you don't have to be in a relationship, but then you're available to want to be in a relationship. So one of the things as far as treatment here at Shades, since this is my show and I can tell you what, anyway, one of the first things I would tell someone, if they are in a relationship, either if you're the love addict or the other one, it's hard to be chased by a love addict. It takes up a lot of time, and a lot of times it will create problems in your job and all. But anyway, so what I would say is come do a 4-day intensive. And in that, you're going to look at that childhood and get to see when that hole in your soul was created. And where, like I said, parents love their kids, and sometimes parents do not know how to show love to their children. healthy love. You embrace a child and then you let them go. You pull them close, you let them go. You pull them close. You teach them to go out there in the real world and, give them every tool that you know to give them to go out there in the real world to live. But if you miss, and you had, live with sick parents, a 4-day will help you go back and get your history straight and do the work around it. Do your shame and anger reduction work. And I'll tell you, sometimes, now with every addiction, and this is not my statistic, but across the board, any addiction, whether it's alcoholism, drug addiction, eating disorders, love and sex addiction, you name it, work addiction, there has been some form of childhood abuse, neglect, or abandonment. And that can be in different levels. It can be very, severe, or it can be, it wouldn't be the type that CPS would be called. Maybe they needed to be. But it's where a child feels abandoned, where they feel neglected or have been neglected. And that sets up that love addiction or any addiction. So every addiction, I believe, people have to go back, addicts, and look at their childhood and get their history straight and look at where it started to create that hole in the soul. And then if we've got the brain chemistry of an addict, when we have that vacant building on the inside and we reach out for any form of process addiction or any form of a substance, if we have that brain chemistry, we have found our solution. We find our solution in addiction. Bingo, we feel better until we feel worse. That's not going to be the solution. We do it until we get so sick we can't do it anymore, and then hopefully go for help. But if you're listening to this and you are a love addict, you're not going to get over it by yourself. And you can, and I am not putting down churches or ministers or pastoral counseling, any of that. You can go and sit at your pastor's feet till hell freezes over and not recover, not even touch the love addiction unless that person has been trained on love addiction. Get with someone that understands it, that can treat you. He may be or she may be a wonderful minister, but unless they're trained in that specific, love addiction or any addiction, it'd be like going to your minister. If you had a broke leg and went to your minister to get him to set it, he's not qualified to do that. So get with people who can help you. So we can help, with a 4-day intensive, and some people need more than that. When you get a real die-in-the-wall love addict, sometimes it takes more than a 4-day intensive. Sometimes it takes inpatient treatment. And then what we recommend is a 12-step support group. They have them for, you have to be careful. They do have sex and love addict meetings. For some love addicts, that's just a seedbed. I mean, they love to go there and see if, anyway. For love addicts, get to a good love addiction meeting. And if you go to sex and love addiction meeting, make sure you have a sponsor and that you can set good boundaries. And because it will be the love addict hitting on the sex addict, not reverse. I've seen it over and over and over and over. A love addict can absolutely trigger a sex addict, and it is just like an Al-Anon, an untreated Al-Anon. They may be going to meetings, but if they're untreated, maybe they're single, and they'll go to open AA meetings for the primary purpose of finding a partner. And many times, they can absolutely contribute. Now, if they didn't cause a relapse, if they can damn sure contribute to an alcoholic's relapse by chasing it anyway. When I was at the Serenity House, we treated mostly men. And I would have women in AA. I mean, some long-term recovering women come and get those guys out of detox and take them home with them. That is what love and sex addiction is. Oh, okay, I've just about gone to preaching, but anyway, a good 12-step meeting. And then if you're just now realizing maybe you do have a love addiction, one thing called here, and we'll do an assessment on you. And another thing, if you're going to go to a therapist, make sure they're trained in love addiction, because if they're not, they will not know how to help you. So ask the right questions and ask where they got their training. Who did they train with? How do they treat love addiction? Because if not, you're going to be wasting your time and your money. So I've covered a lot. I don't know if you have questions. I know some of you, because I know a lot of you on here, and I know some of you have, or have, have suffered from love addiction. And I did. I hate to say, I mean, every time I do one of these, it seems like I can identify, personally. But I was such a love addict, and I had that fantasy of what a marriage was going to be like. Now, I grew up in alcoholism, and we go toward what we lived, because I had was a caretaker for my mother, and I'd been abused by my dad, so we go toward that. And I didn't know I was looking for a man that I could take care of and that would not be there for me. I didn't know what I was looking for, but that's what I got. And by the grace of God and a lot of treatment and a lot of work on both of our parts, we had a good marriage. We were married 51 years, and half of that was good. The first half, not so good. But we were in a learning mode there, and we did a lot of treatment. We did a lot of everything together to get to a coupleship. But I lived in this fantasy, and I'm ashamed to say this, but he had his own business, and I would go down, and if he was hiring a new secretary, if he had several to apply, I would have to give him my approval. I'd go down and interview them, and he never had a good-looking secretary. I picked the ugliest one, the homeliest one, and I know today that doesn't make any difference with love addiction, but I wasn't going to get anybody in there that was very cute, and so anyway, I was a love addict, and if he was late, I can tell you 1,000 stories about me driving around the business, driving around, see who was there, why isn't he home? And of course, his love object at that time was alcohol. It was not another woman, it was alcohol. But anyway, love addiction shows up in a lot of different forms. And if you've ever had that relationship with a love addict, it's like you have no freedom. They are after you all of the time. And you never can do it right. You never can get it good enough. And so, health looks like two adults standing tall, autonomous with themselves. When you can stand alone and be okay with yourself, you got something to take to the table. Otherwise, you're going in there to get something. But when two healthy people come together, you're willing to give. It's an ebb and flow, ebb and flow. It's not one-sided. Okay, that's what I have. Any questions, comments? Thank you.